Hello folks and welcome back. In this presentation we'll be going over chapter 13 from my book that's going to cover 2021, the content grammar language fraud from David W. Miller, the Tower of Babel incident, spells, encountering grey aliens for the first time and lucid astral encounters, the Supersoldier and Secret Space Program, community and stories, the Men in Black, and my first encounter with a mantid Aethian praying mantis being. That seems to be one of my guardians that have intervened on a few occasions. So let's get straight into it. So I write, 2020 came to a close with quite a few ruffled feathers, but still full of purpose and determination to keep seeking the truth. By this point, I had the beginnings of my website in action, and I'd done another course with a gentleman called Mark Kishon Christopher off the back of Bibi Bacchus's course with the UCC1. I realized there was a lot more to this control structure of law that was yet to be revealed to me that I began becoming aware of when finding another gentleman's lectures online by David W. Miller, as you can see there, images of him on the slide, who was teaching the content grammar language fraud inherent in our language, which he cracked the mathematical coding of. So in order to fully understand this complex topic of the content grammar by David W. Miller, I took Mark Kishon Christopher's course, which explained it in simple terms for me in order to elevate my understanding better. As I wrote earlier, the whole legal system and code to this matrix is embedded in our language, which instructs our body politics. It became evident through what David had exposed with his content grammar that the language we have inherited has been used to deliberately switch off and confuse our sub and unconscious minds that house our innate connections to the higher forms of our consciousness that connect right into God source. David proved that we leave university only knowing how to read and write at a grade 8 level. Moreover, the whole general public interface with media, script writing, newspapers, etc. are deliberately written at this level as a universal norm which can be measured using the Gunning-Fogg Index, which is a readability test for English writing that estimates the years of formal education one needs in order to understand the text on the first reading. You will find that the ratings go up to a PhD plus level whenever you copy and paste in legislation, statutes and acts, etc. Basically anything to do with the law, which is deliberately done in order to deter the 8th grade educated and programmed masses from being engaged and even aware of the kind of practices and laws being passed in these bankrupt corporations disguised as governments. In addition, David found that typically we should only have one thought, one sentence, in one word, one meaning. The mathematical interface to the quantum grammar made this a reality when conveying writing. He made it so, just like in math formula and equations, that you can read the sentence both backward and forward and still make sense and have the same result. The structure allowed the expression of facts to be interpreted with the corresponding dictionary, so it wouldn't be able to be open to interpretation by a judge. Mark Kishon Christopher showed how the prefixes in most words actually negate or poison the root word, i.e. if you think of the prefix de as in deceive, the de's are negative, so it would be registered in our subconscious as such. However, when applied to such words as determine or description, it creates an oxymoron within our subconscious minds that acts to actually shut us out in accessing its intelligence. You could think of like receive and reintegrate, and then something that is receding is like going back, like a receding hairline. It's kind of like it does create this kind of oxymoron that goes on in our subconscious minds when trying to pin a definition, a solid definition to that prefix. That obviously it convolutes it, and that's what confuses the communication system within our own parts of selves, within our conscious layers of the sub, unconscious and conscious anatomy. He also revealed the nature of suffixes, taking us away from now time, which is when the law and contracts should always be talking in the now time. Something the suffix of ed often takes us away from, as in received or damaged. Both imply a past event and can be interpreted by the judge to not apply in the present. Pao Chang writes in his book titled Word Magic, The Powers and Occult Definitions of Words, open quote, language equals lan/gu/age. So you've got kind of three different words there, lan, gu, and age. Lan, he refers to as the feminine Chinese and Vietnamese name for orchid. The Vietnamese lan changes this to the masculine context, meaning unicorn, coming from Kai Lan. When Kai Lan is translated from Vietnamese to Latin, we get the word unicornis. And the Kailan was a dragon-type creature that was said to only protect the noble ones. It was also known as the Kulin, as in Qulin. And then he says Gu is the god of war in the Dohemi mythology. So now we have Lan, which is a monster that protects the noble ones, and Gu, the god of war, and Age is the age or ages of the zodiac. Hence, Lan Gu ages, languages, are the monsters interpreted through his lens of research, can mean the monsters of war that protect the noble ones or golden gods, audio, throughout the ages. Okay, it's quite interesting. So we've all heard about the Tower of Babel incident, which scrambled the languages and created more distortion and division, which literally turned humanity into the babbling, ignorant citizens that are reared today. David even referred to our current language as Babel. The MCO AMCC teachings writes this about the Tower of Babel incident, open quote. So in 3470 BC, the Babylon massacre, we had the Galactic Federation and Luciferian, Pleiadian, and Nibirian Anunnaki races steal the Ark of the Covenant gold box and Stargate tools, attempt world dominion beginning in Marduk Anunnaki Draconian held Babylon, temporary planetary magnetic grid collapse created using the Ark tools at Babylon and Nibirian dialect crystal grid at Stonehenge, England, to create reverse fire-letter sequence distortions in Earth's planetary shields, which caused major mutations in the function of the angelic human DNA template. This erased race memory, blocked natural Kundalini flow in the body, causing pineal and thalamus and hypothalamus and thyroid gland malfunctions that shorten human lifespan and block interdimensional perception in all but implanted Anu Melchizedek chosen ones, and scrambled natural language patterns. It was recorded as the Tower of Babel story in the Bible, and the Grail King races retrieve Ark of the Covenant box and tools, preventing advancement of world dominion through intended pole shift. In 2024 BC, Galactic Federation launched an attempted world dominion assault called the Dead Sea Conquest, beginning with Babylonia and Sumerian cities in the areas of the Dead Sea. The biblical stories of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah referred to this event. God did not destroy these ancient cities any more than God orchestrated the scrambling of the languages in the 3470 BC Babylon massacre. God is not a fallen angelic ET. Okay, so again, interesting interpretation when looking through this ET, ultra-terrestrial, meta-terrestrial, with these advanced technologies, lenses of this event that we've obviously heard about with the Tower of Babel incident and the Babylon massacre, that basically scrambled the fire letters in our DNA, which obviously is linked into the morphogenetic field, which is plugged into the morphogenetic field of our Earth and the shield of our Earth, which then instructs the whole process of form to be made manifest and how DNA should be constructed, and thus what we gain access to within these bodies as a consciousness, that these folks basically rendered us babbling idiots. And she said, as soon as this happened, and this has happened quite a few times in our modern history, right, with this drama that's unfolded, that they flick a switch and they do this within the grids, and immediately we go back to being like cavemen in regards to instant Alzheimer's and amnesia, without being able to talk or remember who we are. We just kind of exist and we're in the now moment without having like the memory and the knowledge that we've obtained, up until that point. So yeah, pretty pernicious, pretty vicious. And this is kind of what we've been up against for a long time with these fallen intruder races. So words and spells. I've experienced telepathy in the dream state with other beings, which is more like the normal means of communications we once had before this mess came about. But we must work with what we have, and words, when used in a positive way, can have very powerful and positive effects. Dr. Masaru Emoto's research springs to mind with how he proved that thoughts and words can affect the water molecules when observing them as frozen crystals before and after being exposed to certain thoughts, words and feelings. They all show differences in their geometric structure and patterning, as you can see there on the left. We are mostly made of water, so is our planet, and because of the 2/3 Metatronic reversals running in the planetary Templar, 2/3 of the waters are also running reversals, so it is important we consciously intend to reprogram our waters into more harmonious geometries and frequencies. This also goes for our food, which contains water. As we see with Dr. Emoto's research, water exposed to positive words, thoughts and feelings showed water that was structured in pleasant geometries that were symmetrical. Juxtaposed water exposed to negative sentiments noticeably disorganized and aesthetically less pleasing. An interesting thing to observe is that the water molecules, just like with snowflakes, crystallize in a hexagonal shape akin to the cube/square we have decoded with Saturn. This is actually explained in the MCO-AMCC teachings as a mutation that has run as part of the poison apple closed flow energy harvesting and recycling systems of finite life, Metatronic fall, code bipolar segregation flows, and the false magnetic harness net of the inorganic Van Allen belts that surround our planet, which transmits and encodes this 666 hexagonal Yahweh black cube matrix geometry within Earth's planetary atmosphere and grids, which is seen impressed upon the elements of water when it freezes. But as we have covered, there is good news as this is all in the process of being dismantled as Earth is hosting the failsafe, or at least portions of Earth's grids and life fields who accept the host. So there is an opportunity to ride the express ascension wave back to eternal creation. Yasha exclaims that we will start seeing more and more changes to the geometries of snowflakes and frozen water as the Earth shifts back into the eternal life bridge zone of the failsafe, something we can all take stock of and keep an eye out for as confirmation as time progresses. Okay, so yeah, otherwise, proof that this kind of technology has been imbued within the atmosphere using the Van Allen belts and highly sophisticated technologies that are kind of manipulating the whole matter field at a higher energetic level, that is helping to impress the formations of the water molecules here, which is seen in the snowflakes, in the way that when you freeze water, when doing the research by Dr. Emoto, when using your thoughts and feelings to influence the cymatics and the geometries of this, it's still based on a base 6 mathematical imprint of the hexagonal sextant clock geometries, which ties into this black hole Yahweh technologies and geometries being used and bestowed upon creation with the Metatronic spirals and the Fibonacci mathematics, etc. Okay, so we can look at, as things shift, these geometries will change. We'll start getting different geometries with how water freezes, especially with like snowflakes. Okay, it'd be like the 7s, the 8s, the 9s, the 10s, all right, the 11s. So it's one to look out for. It's quite interesting. So I became aware of how spells work, not only through words, but also thoughts and corresponding feelings they invoke, which charges these words. And as we have discovered, the legal system has us all floating in coffins on paper as surety to mere ink on paper entities of the law that are thought up in the minds of men, women, and unholy creatures, which they are using to cast spells over us. I remember studying the quantum grammar and coming to terms with these poison prefixes, suffixes, and sentence structures that took me a few weeks to readjust my thinking, and I must admit I did experience a bit of a malaise as my mind adjusted to this awareness of what this language had been doing to my sub and unconscious mind. I integrated it well and taught it as a key component and powerful tool to utilize on my website to help dispel the presentments being made to us under this de facto law system when seeking remedy and exposing the fictitious conveyance of language, the false and misleading statements, deprivation of rights under the colour of law, mail fraud, and perjury being used by the system. And this is where obviously I write, which I already alluded to, that I had a dream experience with David Miller, who sadly had passed away in 2018, wherein I was lucid in a room with him, sat around a table, where I was explaining to him the work I was doing down here in regards to implementing this technology, helping to teach it and apply it with other technologies to help gain more freedom for myself and others within the system. He did not say anything, but otherwise nodded with a solemn approval and recognition of him knowing what I was up to. He then proceeded to shuffle a deck of cards that were like tarot cards. He stopped shuffling and showed me a card with a lone wolf on it on one side, then turned it over to show the 11 of diamonds, which obviously is not a card conventionally found in a deck of playing cards. And that's obviously, after that I woke up, and that's all I could remember. That day upon waking, I went to the gym and immediately saw the wolf symbolism ripple into the waking world with a guy wearing a very colourful and bold wolf t-shirt that I had not seen in the gym before, with other wolf symbolisms appearing online and at random times for about a week before it died off. The 11 of Diamonds significance did not come to me until I came across the MCO AMCC teachings with the Asha in 2022, which I connected to be linked to Stargate 11 in the UK at Vela Pusey, just an hour drive from where I was located, and this Christos realignment mission I was involved with, as I mentioned. I remember watching an interview of David Miller and Mark Kishon Christopher, and he mentioned the TV series The Magicians, and commented on how he was surprised how much they revealed in that series, hinting at lots of soft disclosure of a lot of the knowledge and experiences he possessed, having claimed to be a 92nd degree Freemason. He also made comments about interstellar ships spotted by Pluto that altered the course of an asteroid that would otherwise have impacted Earth, without intervention. He certainly was an interesting character and left behind a noticeable impression. Just a shame he had to take an oath of secrecy and hopefully did not fall into the false ascension pathways and doctrines of these fallen systems through the Freemasonic network he was a part of. Okay, so yeah, the Magicians, very, very interesting, worth watching. There's a lot to decode in there, and a lot of truth is revealed, I believe, as well. So yeah, it's a good one. So my first experience encountering grey aliens, right? So around the turn of the year of 2021, I also had two lucid dream experiences encountering grey aliens. The first was an experience back in a location down the road from where I was staying in Boscombe during the November 2019 New Forest experience, where I was at the top. This is in the astrals, right? So I was projecting in that location, even though I was still in Wimborne, but around where I used to live in Boscombe. So where I was at the top of the cliff by the beach in the evening, in the astrals, and I could see some bizarre lights going off in one of the rooms to this apartment block that looked pretty ominous. I was urged to head into the building, where I met with three other individuals at the bottom of the emergency staircase. We could see flashes of these lights going off that lit up the whole staircase from 3 floors above. One of the individuals handed me a gun and explained that they are coming through a portal. The gun I possessed was highly technical and futuristic, that I knew exactly how to operate, that could fire through material things given the correct calibration on the settings. I had set the gun up to fire through the staircase and wall and aimed at the location of where these greys were about to come in, and as soon as I saw them through the walls, I started firing and killing them one by one. This lasted for around 20 or 30 seconds, where I was being fired back at, so I had to move into further cover, and then the memory faded and I woke up. So I remember waking thinking that maybe these strange lights I had been picking up on in rooms ever since November 2018's Cannon Hill experience, if you recollect, it was maybe an outpicture of this going on in the higher dimension with portals being opened up. I always had this inclination when seeing these lights that some of them differed from just the light changes you would see from TV screens lighting up a room, that suggested some kind of paranormal activity or outpicturing that was occurring in a higher dimension. It is no far stretch in the imagination to see how TVs are being used as portals to some degree, given the Black Mirror wormhole portal technology and how Black Mirrors used to be used as scrying devices to communicate with other dimensional entities, that these TVs in the higher dimensions could well be part of the infrastructure embedded into our time matrix that allows portal travel for these little biotech hybrid greys and other entities. These greys were smaller greys, similar to how they are shown in Jupiter Ascending, but slightly larger and with black eyes. So you can see on the bottom left there, that's kind of like the size that they were, but they kind of had the same appearance as the heads of the tall greys, as you can see in the images. But otherwise, yeah, we're just kind of flooding through these portals, and it's quite interesting that the kind of similar lights that I saw in the astrals that drew my attention, with like all these weird lights and changes of colours going off, I've also seen connected to TVs that have caught my attention as well, just walking in the waking state during the night, obviously ever since after that Cannon Hill event, as I allude to, because I became super sensitive to light, and I was just drawn to the weird kind of sequences of light that is connected into these TVs. But sometimes I just see it more often than not, it being more extreme compared to just a normal TV show being played. That is indicative in my mind and what I've experienced, what I'm theorizing, with maybe something that is actually happening at that location within the astrals, but in a higher dimension, with maybe, portal interfaces, something going on, things being transmitted, or, beings coming and going through those devices as if they're like portals, right? So very interesting. So the second grey alien experience I had was with two tall greys. Okay, as you can see there depicted, it's pretty much exactly the same. That's how they were, very tall, probably around 7 foot, so slightly taller than me. In an interesting experience one night in the lucid dream state, I was all of a sudden lucid inside a house, and I heard a knock at the door as I was with someone else trying to help him find something in the room using flashlights, as it was pitch black. I didn't really have any context, it was just there helping this other being search for something, and all of a sudden I was like consciously involved in this process. The rest of the house had lighting though. I heard the knocks again and went to the door to open and see who it was. There appeared two human beings who proceeded to force themselves in as soon as I opened the door. I can't remember them saying anything, but through their aggression it was obvious they weren't positive beings. I stepped back as they pushed their way in, and one went to grab me and the other ran into the room out of sight. I was tussling with this guy for a while, and he threw me down near this fireplace, where I picked up the iron fire stoke and slashed it through him like butter. his substance was like etheric goo. So this iron obviously made his substance change, which is quite interesting. Whereas before it was like just a normal human, just as if I was like grabbing someone or grabbing myself, like flesh. His substance was like etheric goo that this iron firestoke went through and slightly split him in two, stopping him in its tracks. I guess the iron rod somehow triggered his physical atoms to shift into this substance as I struck him. I could see he was busy trying to put himself back together with what had been cut and separated by this strike. So I left him and ran into the other room where I saw the other man, now in his tall grey form, right, that came in, led next to the guy I was with at the beginning, and I saw this stream of energy being transferred from the guy and into the tall grey alien. The tall grey alien was siphoning energy from this guy's astral body whilst he was asleep. I immediately ran over and started stomping on the grey alien to stop him, and again, his substance was akin to etheric goo, which did disrupt him and stop the energy siphoning, where the tall grey then rolled over and slowly stood up, looking all defeated. The other tall grey alien walked in, and they both looked defeated and very ashamed of what they were doing. It was all in the body language and telepathy that I was picking up on, with this feeling of guilt and resentment that went all the way back to their whole race, the situation they were in, and the desperation of them now needing to do this to survive. So there were chairs there in this room, and I sat down noticing there was no longer any threat by them. They sat down with me, and I asked them how do they change their appearance to look human. This was all done telepathically. One of the tall greys was showing me a collar they had around their neck that, when activated, as he showed me, by switching it on, it makes them appear human by bending the light and restructuring the atoms and the holographic appearance. He demonstrated this a few times on and off to show the transition in technology. I remember saying to them before I shifted and the dream experience stopped that this must stop and it isn't good, and they were in ashamed compliance. A very weird but revealing experience. So the guy who had part of his energy siphoned remained asleep on the floor the entire time. I did not know this person in this physical life, but maybe in a higher dimensional existence we had a connection, who knows. A careful study of the intruder races in chapter 6 will reveal more information surrounding these greys, who come from the Zephelium, Fallen Seraphim race lines, their allegiances mainly with the Draconians and their associations on planet, as we have gone through when assessing Azazel and Aleister Crowley's Lamb great alien encounter in chapter 3 as I cover. So yeah, very fascinating experience. So much of 2021, as I already alluded to, I was watching a lot of the Supersoldier talk interviews and presentations on YouTube hosted by James Rink. I also watched a lot of presentations by Max Spears and Johann Fritz and a channel called Quantum Red Pill Cafe. The Supersoldier community and stories are very interesting. It's based on the secret space program, pronounced SSP in short, that are being run within this parallel society of on and off world highly classified and covert human and alien intelligences. A lot of people who have been involved with this have memory bleed throughs in their 30s, typically where they recall memories of being used in this lifetime off world for certain jobs within the intergalactic empire, mainly run by the Draconian and Nazis who joined forces with them when discovering them on the dark side of the moon back in the 1940s, using their anti-gravity diglockers that the Vril girls had channeled from the Nordics and Draco ETs for the Thule secret society. This goes into a whole alternative history surrounding the Axis and allies during that period of World War I and World War II, which led to a breakaway civilization and Nazi direct contact with the Dracos that is beyond the scope of this book. But I highly recommend tuning into this more detailed history during this epoch as told by James Rink throughout his presentations, and cross-examine it with Iash's translations from the Emerald Tablets that show a lot of it does certainly rhyme and complements the material. James Rink refers to the service missions as 20, 40 or 60 year and back programs, where people are taken at points in their life to serve for 20, 40 or 60 years in space-run covert programs, typically within this solar system, to either help with building or maintaining off-world colonies, and then taken back in time, re-aged, and have their memory blank slated using the blank slate neutralizer technology after the 20, 40 or 60 years is done, so to erase all evidence of these operations. They insert false memories and blocks in the form of suicide programs or lone wolf programs, which is the name of James Rink's book, in case the memory starts leaking, in order to maintain these classified activities so that people will either recall false memories, live in isolation and not speak about it, or trigger suicides. Most people have naturally been drawn toward James Rink and they're subject to the secret space program and the super soldiers as soon as they start having bleed-throughs of memories in the sense that they may have been involved. The laws of attraction and resonance would dictate that most people who are drawn to these subjects are more than likely involved or have been involved with them at some level. Yeah, James Rinks has always got a wonderful channel of so many individuals coming forth remembering all this, and it all connects. It's all like it's telling of the same story, so it's very credible in regards to analyzing and researching, putting the pieces together when cross-examining what individuals are saying within this framework of this context of Supersoldier and what is otherwise explained with the history and the technologies and the races and agendas. That's certainly, worth plugging into, and I was definitely guided into just absorbing all of this information for pretty much most of 2021, like I said. So the community encompasses quite a big following of individuals involved at some level, with new people coming to the forefront as they start to disband these blocks in memory that start bleeding through, that all tell of a similar story related to the SSP. James Rink hosts a channel, website and platform to help garner more exposure and help assist those who may have suffered as a result of some of these abuses and technologies when being exploited for labour without consent and moreover without compensation, along with being subject to many violating rituals, techniques and technologies. It also exposes the very ugly satanic ritual abuse techniques that are used to help control powerful starseeds down here, that allows the controllers/handlers to create altars of fragmented consciousness that is then used to animate cloned super soldiers of them, which are cybernetically enhanced with advanced ET technology that goes into nanotech and even femtotech, which are femtonite bots, biobots, which can manipulate subatomic particles within the quarks of the DNA and gift the clone with unique abilities to help perpetuate the agendas of those who buy them. The Captain America character in the Marvel franchise is a good representation of the first generation super soldier that have been created. According to James Rink's research, they have up to Gen 10 and possibly more models of super soldiers, with the latest generations being the most expensive and possess the most abilities/power. My memories of being involved is not clear and definitive, but I have had many dealings in the dream state when battling entities like the Greys, and another memory of me being dropped along a beachfront to raid an alien base in some other planet that looked exactly like a scene out of the Halo game franchise. Also, one person who had been interviewed I'd felt a connection with as possibly part of the same soul family as me. I could see it in the eyes. I've had plenty of attention, as I've already revealed, and my mission still seems to be ongoing in regards to the Indigos and Finborn duties here with the grids and assisting Earth with this supposed transition. However, it became apparent that the most likely individuals who became entangled within these covert programs were starseeds, as we possessed much higher soul quantum and abilities in which to start abusing, harnessing and controlling to perpetuate certain agendas of the negative alien forces. Okay, so you can see there on the slide image of a diglocker, okay, which is supposedly what the Nazis backward engineered through the Vril Society girls, channeling these schematics from alien races. And there's otherwise a MILAB, military abduction lab or base, where there's many hidden underground bases all over the world, none more so than the United States, with a supposed reptilian kind of Draco entity with some individuals from the United States military or wherever they are, with this depiction of the kind of triangle shape UFO, which is often linked to the Omicron Draconian kind of fallen seraphim races. Okay, then obviously there's a few schematics of the early Nazi craft designs, and this is all taken from Super Soldier Talk by James Rink and some of his presentations. And then we've got obviously the blank slate neutralizer technology as well, and it goes into more detail with these kind of government contracts that were made. So does the Ashiana and Voyagers 2 as well, with these allegiances that were formed and these trading of technologies for the rights for especially the Zeta and the Dracos to start abducting the human citizens that the kind of governments, the leaders at the time, sold us out for. Technology in order to gain an upper hand in this kind of war that was all again orchestrated really by these higher forces in order to subjugate the world leaders and get them to fall into the trap of hegemony and the desire to gain more power and technology and proliferate their nation and races and greed and everything else that goes with it. So it is believed with the technology they possess, they can scan your soul consciousness essence before incarnating here through the technologies of the moon, know exactly who you are and where you are from, and blank slate your memory, fragment your consciousness, and insert you into incarnations with surrogate families who are designed to help maintain the status quo of the prison planet here, whilst they use fragmented parts of your soul identity to animate cloned super soldier versions of yourself that are used all over the galaxy and bought and sold by many competing galactic families, races, and empires. As the negative alien races, mainly the Dracos and their hierarchy, see us all as a product at the end of the day, who are no different to how we look down and treat, farm, experiment on our animals. A philosophy which is garnered deliberately to make us think that this is all acceptable and part of the natural order, when we know by now it is far removed from the truth of who we are and how we got here in what has happened in this time matrix according to the MCO AMCC translations. So as a result of the mutations done to the planet and the human body, the average IQ is around 100. To give you perspective of what we're up against, the average IQ of a super soldier would be anywhere between 250 to 500, and the ET alien races would be in the ranges of 800 to 1,000 plus. So it's quite easy to see, given our mutations, how they see us in relation to them, especially from the negative side. However, that junk portion of our DNA holds much potential, as we have already discovered with the genesis of the human angelic template and base 12 DNA potential that we possess and have been gifted with, a potential far greater than any of these negative races. It's up to us to do the work to reactivate and ride this wave of resistance to allow us to come back to that full potential. The main theme within the community is that the Dracos are the dominant force in this sector of the galaxy and on Earth. They use highly advanced technology to keep the human race enslaved. They use timeline technology to peer into the future in order to maintain control. They harvest loosh, negative energy, partake in satanic ritual abuse, orgies, and sexual energy extraction. Humans are trafficked to help build colonies off-world, converted into cyborgs for slave labor, converted into food for aggressive species, which is less than 1% of the human population, or sold to alien groups as breeding pairs. Humans are a product, but the most valuable commodity in the universe is technology and knowledge/intelligence, which coincides with Pierce Abac's claim of how knowledge is the most important commodity and how they, the negative alien races, are mining knowledge from humans and the universe to get an upper hand in the battles against other predatory forces. So the NSA, CIA, and NRO have almost no access and do not know what is going on this planet, as it is a very well managed secret that otherwise Pierce Abac alludes to with the classical tradition and this parallel society. The US Navy Network and Space Operations Command, NNSOC, and other country equivalents are mainly involved with this naval and classist tradition of liaising and working with these programs whose main bases are Area 51 and Pine Gap in Australia. There are deep underground bases, acronym DUMS, everywhere that ties into the whole MyLab, military abduction phenomenon and operations as well. The MCO AMCT teachings refer to this parallel society as the Illuminati World Management Team and their Illuminati hybrid sleeper races on Earth who are completely controlled and begotten to fallen angelic technologies and agendas, with only a very few who know the real truth of other intelligences interacting with Earth, and no one knowing the true detail of their agendas and our true history who are involved with them. Okay, as she writes, open quote in her book, the elite masters of war that have held by force positions of political, religious, and economic power throughout our known history from Sumeria, Babylon, Egypt, and Rome up to the present day, covert world management team, are the Illuminati hybrid sleeper races. The Illuminati hybrid sleeper races are the earthly representatives of competing Anunnaki, Necromaton, and Draconian, Reptilian, Fallen Angelic legions, and they have been the motivating force behind literally all human politics since the 9558 BC fall of Atlantis. Illuminati hybrid sleepers are but a minority within Earth populations, but they are those presently in positions of greatest power and influence behind the global political, religious, and economic infrastructure. Like Earth's human races, Illuminati sleeper races have been subjected to literally thousands of years of false cultural and religious programming via implanted Anunnaki and Draconian reptilian indoctrination. Most sleeper races do not consciously know of the reality of fallen angelics/ETs. Only the few elite key controllers among each sleeper faction are permitted conscious knowledge of covert fallen angelic ET contact, and none are permitted full knowledge regarding the real fallen angelic and ET agendas. Fallen angelics historically control their sleepers to serve as their expendable pawns upon chessboard Earth through remote net, which stands for Nibirian electrostatic transmission of subliminal psychotronic electromagnetic scalar pulse programs and astral tagging. Though Illuminati hybrid sleeper races appear both outwardly and genetically like common humans, due to genetic mutations that began in 25,500 BC, they do not have the human soul essence. The sleepers are incarnates from the fallen angelic ET collectives that control them. Genuine human troll tribe incarnates emerged from a once ascended master guardian Margie Grail line soul collective, not from the fallen angelic collectives from which Illuminati sleepers emerge. End quote. So the grey aliens are typically in alliance with the Dracos as the foot soldiers for them, and as we have seen within the MCO-AMCC teachings, there are many races and many enemies and alliances that are in constant flux given the evolution of the drama within our time matrix. But a lot of the fallen races did come together under the Unite Intruder resistance, as we covered, in order to combat the guardian Christic races with their mission of helping to implement divine will during this final end time stellar activation cycle drama. The Supersoldier community is a great complement to the MCO AMCC teachings, as it reveals some of the other technologies used with the likes of jump rooms, rooms which are portals that can take you to locations on Earth and in the solar system, and potentially other star systems, density chambers used when transiting harmonic universes along the density scale we saw on the Cathara grid. Got time bubbles and time freezing zones used to hide bases and areas in pocket realities. Trip seats, total recall chairs, which are erasing, inserting, altering memories. Consciousness chairs they talk about, which requires ET-DNA to interface with alien spacecraft. Teleportation chairs, astral projection or physical teleportation. You have black goo, which is AI sentient organism injected to enhance IQ by 100 plus, typically used by the Draconians, Draco. You have regen tanks, which regenerates damaged bodies, used for hybridization and age regression. And you also have soul chairs used to transfer souls between bodies and clones. Think of the movie Avatar. So it's kind of like a few images there representing some of this regen tanks and technologies that are being used, which is all taken from Supersoldier community as well, from remote viewing and memories that are recalled and testimonies. And then obviously here are some of the reptilians, Omicron Draconians, right in the chromaton, Dedicron, etc., with sketches from people's testimonies as well. However, the community could definitely benefit from studying and integrating more of the MCO AMCC teachings, something I've only seen random trickles of information come through that are very basic but without reference to Iasha and her translations. Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot is the only one within this community who has interviewed Iasha that I know of so far and considered the teachings, but the investigations and integration has seemingly stopped, and I don't see this widespread proliferation within the community adopting these more advanced aspects of creation, races, technologies, and agendas that the MCO AMCC teachings offer. I feel this book and my efforts can help bridge this gap in helping to raise the collective consciousness of this community. But as we have learned with the nature of energy, frequency, and DNA, people can only receive what they are ready for, which is dictated by their DNA template and consciousness integration, as well as mutations, implants that distort that. And we have to consider the harsh reality of many within the New Age spiritual communities who are tagged and running the reversals, which limit their capacity to seek and share other information that will be integral to the development and growth of consciousness in such communities, designed specifically to keep people stuck in the anti-Christic Metatronic fallen angelic desired black hole fall timeline integrations, teachings, and activations. Such channelers and even remote viewers within the New Age community are also in danger of being plugged into by fallen angelic ET technologies, Dark Soul, Oversoul, and Avatar collectives, and the trained Illuminati sleeper races here on Earth that can give them false perceptions, visions, and information that suits the needs of the fallen agenda. Iasha refers to these false overlays as buffer screens, holographic insert fields, and EM detection blankets, which certainly rhymes with the SSP's claims of the time bubbles and freezing zones and pocket realities. Iasha calls this astral mess the net, which stands for the Nibirian electrostatic transduction field, which is the scalar pulse interference technologies embedded into Earth's planetary shields by the Nibirian dyadic crystal grid. There are many highly trained remote interactive teams, RITs for short, RITs, who can project their consciousness into the default astral field, wherein they use advanced astral field technologies to manipulate individuals and populations. This is mainly done through fallen angelic oversight of individuals being artificially forced out of body by the use of bioelectrical technologies, mechanically transmitted EM currents, and neurochemical compounds that stimulate the pineal gland and DNA template. This is, again, similar to the technologies discussed within the SSP community. I feel there are many individuals with some brilliant research and major contributions that have been made within this subject, but when I reach out to them in order to reveal the works from Iasha, there is no acknowledgement, integration, or response. I've even had comments under YouTube videos deleted referencing the MCO AMCC teachings, which is highly suspect when revealing individuals who are possibly running fallen agendas or victims of this technology and or protecting their egos from lifelong works and research to only have someone come along with far more advanced and detailed information directly transmitted from holographic discs as part of a very high and important mission and speaker contract that threatens their livelihoods and narrative they've spent many years investing in. It's like the messenger has arrived, but everyone seems to be turning a blind eye. These technologies and knowledge of interference, for me at least, helps explain why intelligent people seem to completely dismiss, investigate, or reference the works that will only help aid and complement the tremendous research most have already done. Many are still plugged into and caught up within the net, I know because it took me a great deal of work to dismantle these false belief systems, implants from my own consciousness that was aimed at leading me away from and doubting the MCO AMCC teachings. Okay, they reference also there's a TV show called Fringe, which is worth watching again, which is all about the fringe sciences that goes into parallel realities, portals, our parallel Earth, and also the technologies that are used to enhance like extrasensory perception and abilities. Okay, which goes into what was mentioned here with how they work with injecting chemicals to stimulate DNA, pineal gland, etc. And actually, some of the companies that they actually share the same name. I think it's Massive Dynamic in the Fringe TV series. There is actually a Massive Dynamic that operates and works with similar kind of agendas and technologies, as well as all these other corporations that we hear of, with the likes of Resident Evil, with that company. I forgot the name of it. The Umbrella Corporation, right? That is actually a true corporation, as confessed by the Supersoldier community guys, and their work with tinkering with DNA and pathogens and stuff like this, mutations, genetic splicing experiments, hybridization programs, all of that stuff goes on, and it's an interplanetary corporation that is obviously behind, mostly fronted and steered and seeded by these fallen angelic groups that the humans that get involved with this are kind of purely under the control of. So it is fascinating. So a little bit more on intruder technologies. The fallen angelic collectives utilize this covert activity of astral projection for bioenergetic field astral attachment and for partial or full body possession. The RITs are often used to tag individuals with frequency implants in the D4 bioenergetic field, which is remote controlled via scalar pulse transmission, causing them to fall into Illuminati controlled mind control. These can manipulate and transmit instructions as thoughts and voices inside the mind of individuals who are tagged in order to instruct them for certain purposes, which they fulfill. A kind of Manchurian candidate, sleeper assassin setup, but it can also be used, as explained with the SSP, to block memories, insert memory programs such as suicide and lone wolf programming, self-isolating, preventing individuals from seeking help, and to create general discord and blocks, specifically in indigos, to prevent them from activating and try and take them over / control to help run the reversals and fallen agendas. As Yasha states, open quote, in her book, Voyages 2, over the last 100 years, Anunnaki races have been using the Nibirian electrostatic transduction field, the NET, to transmit specific technological information to strategically positioned selected Illuminati sleepers, through which human science could slowly advance via covert Anunnaki inspiration. Since 1943, the Zeta Dracos have been running a counter-ET technology training program on Earth in hopes of capturing full control of the Anunnaki net for use in their own agendas. In 1999, the Anunnaki and Zeta Regalian Draco forces agreed to work together to prevent Emerald Covenant nations from disengaging the net. The intruder ET technology training that has been literally electronically inserted into the minds of men was placed so that human science would selectively advance to the development of the specific technologies that will be needed to lower the frequency fence into the D3 frequency bands. The man-made electrical grid networks of Earth and literally all core radio, television, fiber optics, digital, EM pulse, sonic pulse, and microchip technologies have emerged in human civilization through the genius of people selected for covert, fallen angelic intruder ET inspiration. If Emerald Covenant races have been able to provide humanity's technological education over the past 10,000 years, natural thought-directed subtle wave technologies built upon organic creation physics, core scalar template dynamics, and sacred planetary Templar Merkaba mechanics would have long ago transported Earth's peoples beyond all earthly limitations. A race does not need airplanes when knowledge of natural portal and stargate passage is used effectively. One does not need light bulbs when one knows how to project self-contained luminescent biodon field standing waves, or when a civilization utilizes the natural global free energy systems inherent to Earth's Templar complex. A few things to which we can eventually look forward to when Earth becomes a free planet. Emerald Covenant training would have also served to provide the cultural, spiritual, and social ethics through which the power of science can be used to enhance and free consciousness within the manifest experience, rather than degrade and enslave it. The earthly ground technologies that are now commonplace in developed nations are not the benign and helpful miracles of human science that they appear to be. Their development was covertly orchestrated off-planet with the following intentions in mind. It was to, 1, to strengthen the frequencies of the D4 net, progressively drawing the net into the D3 frequency band. 2, to suppress the natural DNA template and pineal activation in humans that would normally occur during the 2017 stellar activation cycle in order to harness human consciousness into the 3D field. If our fourth DNA strand were not partially blocked from activation, we would all be able to see that the D4 frequency band surrounding Earth in our local galaxy presently looks like an ET parking lot. If human and indigo DNA is suppressed, they cannot actively run the natural 12-dimensional Kundalini Maharata life force currents through the body, which are needed to run the RRTs into the planetary shields during stellar activation cycles. The RRT stands for Rainbow Roundtables, which is the process of actually running the Christic energies into the grids. 3, to amplify existing DNA mutations in human, indigo, and Illuminati races for lowered immune system response to expedite biological deterioration of select populations in preparation for and during the 2017 stellar activation cycle. 4, to create frequency weakness in the D4 human, indigo, and Illuminati astral body, so astral tagging, biofield infiltration, and mind control can be easily and covertly orchestrated on a mass level. 5, to interfere with natural function of human brain waves, blood and hormonal systems in order to amplify humanity's present entrapment within the biological form. 6, to distract human attention fully into the external world and into disempowering dependence upon external technologies, so the natural powers of mind, spirit, and DNA remain undeveloped. These are only some of the things our modern technologies were intentionally designed to do for us, while keeping us joyfully enamored with their apparent advantage. And she kind of puts there a little comment, it's like Atlantis revisited. Okay, but now that these technologies are here, this is her continuing, they can be used to promote well-being rather than damage. We are not an anti-technology religious dogma group. At the expense of sounding redundant, I will point out that the D12 frequencies generated in the personal biology via consistent use of the Maharic seal will progressively clear and neutralize the personal effects of damaging electromagnetic emissions. If you can generate through educated mental direction of bioenergy, organic D12 subharmonics through nanosecond activation of the dormant portions of your DNA template in biofield, you do not need external devices such as tachyon field interceptors to protect you from Earth's present environment. There are numerous other natural means of protection that, if used with the Maharic seal, will amplify personal immunity to such damaging invisible wave fields. End quote. So I continue, I write, as always, it's important to emphasize the problem in order for us to appreciate the solution. Again, if you visit ourhairs.com, you can get your hands on all of the products on offer that will help with developing your bioenergetic and spiritual strength, activations and defenses to make you more robust naturally during these times. A lot of the techniques involve journeying in the mind's eye, working with powerful sound tones that instruct the scalar wave template that encompasses our being, and symbol codes for induction, integration, and embodiment. And of course, the first step in any healing program is recognizing, acknowledging, and learning about the darkness so you consciously start healing the problem and the ailment, which is why first becoming aware of all of this and getting your spiritual hands dirty, so to speak, is a necessity if you ever want to reclaim your full potential and become an effective piece down here on chessboard Earth. The saying by Gwen Wyckoff is worth repeating: until you know evil, you know nothing. So don't fall victim to the love light and clueless cult, for I am sure that is another net programmed movement to help pacify and lock people into ignorant bubbles which don't do anything apart from inflate people's egos and keep their fields weak for astral infiltration, running reversals and helping to proliferate fallen angelic metatronic energies into the grids. So coming back to the SSP and Supersoldier community, they also list the names, leaders and agendas of some of the intergalactic corporations that are directly involved within the SSP, such as Monarch, Mobius, Umbrella Corporation, which is apparently headed by Richard Bay, whose clone is Tom Cruise in our reality, Scorpion Corporation, Massive Dynamic, portrayed in the Fringe TV series that discloses some of the experiments and technologies being used. Got Moonbase, MK Ultra, which obviously a lot of people know about, which is trauma-based mind control, Mancurian Candidate, a very basic example. Black Shield, Antarctic Nordic-based cloning hybrid Supersoldier facility. You've got Neurocore, which is the subdivision of Cyberlife, which implants femtotech that connects to AI, headed by Elon Musk. You've got the Narkwaffen Dark Fleet, which is the Nazi Draco Alliance. Solar Warden, Radiant Garden, Kruger, which are the more positively aligned factions referred collectively as the Alliance, and are supposedly linked with the NNSOC. So interestingly, it is said within the community that a lot of the other aliens love booze that we produce and drink, as well as music, and clothes, as we are one of the only races imbued with this concept of constant ingenuity when it comes to fashion and creative expressions, something that reinforces this concept of the fallen races being cut off from the eternal flows of source, which I can imagine to some degree severed the divine eternal spirit that's responsible for this type of creative inspiration. I remember in the summer of 2020, during the lockdowns, I had witnessed two very large and bright white dots by the moon during the day, which were slowly moving around to the backside of the moon, where they went out of view. I immediately thought these were ships that were reflecting the sun's light that exposed them. In 2021, I encountered another weird sighting of an object shaped like an S that was slowly rotating that passed over the house. You see there in the bottom left image, it's actual photos I took of this object. My initial thoughts were that it was simply a balloon drifting in the wind. However, this object reversed course and came back over the house once it passed moments later, indicating propulsion and intelligent design. May have been connected with the MyLabs military. Another interesting phenomenon that started quite frequently soon after being introduced and integrating the SSP knowledge was having sudden cut marks on my fingers, which coincided with telltale signs of abductions that James Rink revealed, even with his own testimonies and photos, wherein I would all of a sudden get a sharp paper cut-like sting on my body, typically on my hands, but I've had cuts on my forehead and nose as well that would randomly occur throughout the day. So you can see there are a few that I took of images of, like, there's one on my thumb of like a three-pronged mark that all of a sudden appeared out of nowhere and had like this sting to it. And then another one recently, actually was last year in 2024, when I was here in Australia, on my forehead, just woke up and I just saw this like quite deep cut on the top of my head, which I thought was quite bizarre, but could be indicative of, you know, some of these so-called abductions and harvesting of DNA in order to perpetuate certain agendas, both on the good side and bad side. So I write in my book about abductions. I have one memory of being taken during the night in an abduction attempt where I was starting to wake up whilst being escorted out of my room. I couldn't see anything and I felt pretty sedated and out of it, akin to being drugged, but I had this sense of other beings around me and that I was being taken somewhere. So I remember lashing out, resisting, and in my mind withdrew consent, etc. I remember waking up with a bit of a thud on my bed as if I was dropped, and later found a cut in the morning on my nose that was probably as a result of the struggles of me trying to get free. I can't remember exactly when this took place, but it was in 2021, and I felt as a result of my studies and conscious awareness increasing, I was able to penetrate and break through some of the technologies they were using to keep me sedated. What's interesting is that the Guardians, according to Iasha, are also responsible for some abductions, which are called genetic repair abductions, to help with the activations for the stellar activation cycle. This apparently began in 1972 and were consensual soul agreement abductions to help repair genetic mutations. The Draco Zetas were responsible for a lot of forced covert abductions as part of their hybridization programs and creation of human clones. As Yasha states in regards to the Draco Zeta abductions, open quote, they also created infiltrates via genetic engineering, through which they can interface with Earth's cultures under the guise of human form. Infiltrates are children conceived of natural human conception whose mothers were abducted during pregnancy, so Zeta Draco's genetic materials could be infused into the fetus. These children are born usually within the 7th month of gestation and raised by their human parents and appear to be fully human. They are consciously unaware of their ET affiliation, but can be subliminally directed by the Draco's Zeta resistance via the DNA and neurological structure. When Guardian groups locate such infiltrate individuals, they orchestrate abductions and dismantle the Zeta Draco's gene codes, thereby freeing these mostly human subjects from their covert controllers. End quote. I remember sensing a different kind of flavour, feeling, and encryption to how I was handled with some of these marks that would occur on my body that best described the forces behind them. Guardian abductions were a lot less intrusive, whereas Draco Zeta abductions were very direct and not handled with care. Guardians also used cloning in the event that the individual who came to Earth to help on the mission and had activated up to at least 5 strands of DNA activation, but later got mutations/genetic distortions due to intruder races, abductions, and infiltration, can have their consciousness transferred into a cloned body for transit into space on interdimensional craft. It seemed from the SSP and the MCO AMCC teachings that they both confirmed that treaties in the 1930s with interior governments were made by the Zeta on behalf of the draconian reptilian agendas. Apparently, the Zeta convinced a lot of the Anunnaki and Draco reptilian Illuminati sleepers and key controllers within the shadow government on Earth of the impending threat of invasion by the Anunnaki, Pleiadian Nibirian allegiance, there is this Anu Elohim reptilian Luciferian dialectic springing up again. So what were the Anunnaki up to? Yasha writes, open quote, Anunnaki legions were forced to initiate select covert physical contacts with key figures in their Illuminati hybrid factions in an attempt to try and persuade them to break the Zeta treaties. Though the Anunnaki gained some converts through these attempts, the majority of Illuminati hybrid races remained compromised by the trickery of the Zeta treaties, as the Zetas provided key weapons technologies to further their interest in the World War II drama. Anunnaki races refused to provide weapons technologies as they feared their Illuminati hybrid races might use such technologies against them if the Anunnaki could not maintain critical mass control of Illuminati races. As the UFO abduction movement progressed following the dominant draconian reptilian Zeta agenda, the Anunnaki began an aggressive covert counter-campaign using psychotronic scalar pulse technologies and the net to awaken their civilian Anunnaki Illuminati hybrid sleeper races. The Anunnaki trump card of the net NDC grid was used to initiate psychotronic transmission of channeling contact with Illuminati sleepers and humans within the private sector. Through this covert application of selective mass mind control, progressive cooperation of unsuspecting people was garnered to advance the Anunnaki Dominion agenda, culminating in the creation of what has become the New Age movement. Throughout the building fiasco of Earth Illuminati interstellar politics, Emerald Covenant Guardian races made numerous attempts at physical contact with key members of all Illuminati factions and human governments. Guardian races offered protection from both Anunnaki and draconian reptilian invasion of Illuminati and human interior government controllers if they'd be willing to honor the tenets of egalitarian freedom, non-exploitation and peaceful co-evolution as long stated within the Emerald Covenant. Direct Guardian intervention in Earth's affairs required World Management Team controllers to discontinue their programs of official denial, reveal the truth of the Atlantic wormholes, and visitor contact to the public, and to present to all populations the free will choice of entering the Founders' Universal Emerald Covenant Peace Treaty. End quote. As you can see there on the top left, that's otherwise a depiction of remote viewing and memories from testimonies within the Supersoldier community under James Rink of a Draco looking to, I think, extract or insert a fragmented soul consciousness from an individual as an alter into one of these clones that is a super soldier. So onto the Men in Black now. So the Men in Black are an interesting phenomenon. So interesting they had to make a film series about them in order to disclose what's going on, but with a twist, with some apparently important facts being omitted. According to the MCO AMCC teachings, the Men in Black, MIB, are linked to the intruder ET and Illuminati races of the Necromaton, Andromi, human, beetle, reptile, insect hybrids. These guys became involved with certain factions of the draconian Illuminati human interior government in the 1930s, and otherwise have been used to help with the cleanup and sanitizing of UFO or extraterrestrial evidence. They serve their own agenda, but have allied with other intruder races and hide mostly in pocket realities under the Earth and in inner Earth, as apparently they cannot spend much time on surface Earth because of their genetics. There is a whole detailed modern history of the Men in Black Necromatons' participation that goes into World War I and World War II, published in Voyages 1. It seems they helped inspire Adolf Hitler, who was first under the control of the Zeta Regalians, to assist in the Necromaton and Dromi agenda, contrary to the Zeta draconian deals he had made. They supposedly made covert physical contact and wooed him to go along with their plan by gifting him with some metaphysical Templar knowledge that allowed the Nazis to unearth certain valuable relics involved with the Grail quest. Iyasha does not write about what the SSP/Supersoldier community have unearthed in regards to the Antarctic base and supposedly unlocking anti-gravity ships that set up this breakaway civilization and contracts with the Dracos when they ended up on the dark side of the moon, which formed the SSP, but it's certainly a story that rhymes. She reveals the main agendas, though, which was to gain control of Earth's Templar, with securing particular sites and ley lines that connected into the Falcon wormhole, and exterminate certain portions of the human angelic grail lines that were part of the Jewish Hebrew bloodlines. That seems to be the main concern for all races involved, which is access and control of the Universal Templar. Everything else seems secondary, but related to this quest. So you can see a few renditions that are ran through the models of ChatGPT to produce images of what these Necromaton and Dromi kind of beetle, insectoid, human hybrids maybe look like when not under their full cloaked human form, right? It's quite creepy. But otherwise, Men in Black, again, soft disclosure for everything that's going on. I remember Bill Turner, again, the expert in the legal tricks and traps, very adept in symbolism within music and TV shows and movies that he touches on as well. mentions how Men in Black is otherwise a documentary, and they're letting us know what's going on to a certain level. So he believes and knows that that is the truth. So to wrap up this chapter, I talk about my first encounter with an Aethiopian, they're called, which is a mantid being, as you see there on the left. So my first encounter with the mantid, as the SSP folks call them, or Aethiopian, as the MCO AMCC teachings refer to them as, was in another out-of-body experience / astral experience outside my home at Cuthberger in Wimborne. I was at the front on the road in the astrals, peering into beneath where our Lebanese cedar tree was, where I saw an opening to a huge cave that housed rare earth crystal gems of a multitude of colours, ranging from ruby reds, emerald greens to topaz yellow. I was with another person, and we were removing rubble and rocks from the entrance of the cave that seemingly just decided to reveal itself as if it was cloaked beforehand, where I noticed a presence in the upper atmosphere. I turned to look up at the sky to my left and could see a huge praying mantis, Aethiopian, looking down at me, akin to the same experience I had with the Bali Moon samurai Anunnaki entities, as if, again, I was in some kind of petri dish, and this entity was a lot larger and existed outside of the dome that housed us. We acknowledged each other, and then he walked away as if on a viewing platform and went out of sight, and I returned to help clear the rubble for a while longer before the memory faded and I woke up. Like I mentioned before, our property in that tree out front was quite significant for the grids. It is claimed that when certain sites come online and get activated, they uncloak and are able to be seen if you were to stumble upon them. This would apply in the astral 4D and 3D. As I remember Iyasha talking about, when the grids and certain sites activate, they come online, and typically new discoveries are made, just like with the huge crystal caves in Mexico, as you can see a picture there, these huge crystals. It also helped explain why I would see neighbours' cats stop and stare into the base of the tree on the driveway now and again. Perhaps they were seeing into the 4D layer and were mesmerised by all these gems that lit up the cave there beneath the tree. This also reminds me there was one black cat without a collar on that was around predominantly during times of me getting hit with ill frequencies. There seemed to definitely be a correlation between me seeing this black cat, and either that day or the next night I would encounter ill energies. One night of energy attacks, I remember coming downstairs to see the black cat curled up in our front porch. It made me realise that even animals can be harbingers of certain events, both ill and good, that this black cat certainly lived up to its billing as a sign associated with ill energies from my experience. I think they can even be vessels for evil spirits to exist within and project from to help get close to you and infiltrate, as portrayed in the movie Fallen, with the spirit Azazel possessing a cat. I don't believe all black cats are like this, but if anyone is seeking proof of alien hybridization programs, then look no further than the domestic cat. Most felines have circular pupils in the cat kingdom, with the likes of lions, leopards and cheetahs, etc. However, if we look at domestic cats, we have slitted pupils only associated with reptiles, snakes and alligators. Moreover, cats hiss like snakes, and they also like eating mice, same as snakes. In addition, domestic cats are considered to be one of the most damaging invasive species worldwide, with a high Machiavellian predation amongst local wildlife. I've even witnessed cats toy with their prey, whether it be a mouse or a lizard, etc., an attribute only associated with fallen angelic races and that type of twisted consciousness they possess. As I came to learn with the MCO AMCC teachings, we have 1/3 Christic energies, plants, minerals, animals and people on planet, with 2/3 Metatronic. So even within the plant and animal kingdoms, we have species here not native to eternal life Christic systems. Moreover, the whole concept of predator/prey goes into the whole VV drama of victim-victimizer programming embedded into reality by the fallen mechanics and their need to feed and vampire off of other life to sustain their existence. If we recollect also with the Dracon, when dissecting the whole Garden of Eden myth with the coitus, with Lucifer, the snake serpent, giving an apple to Eve, was otherwise unlocking and decoding and hiding the allegory behind the Dracon infiltration of splicing their genetics into, or force breeding, right, with the human angelic bloodlines of the females in order to get on planet their hybrids so they can allow their soul essence and consciousness to be integrated on planet, just like what they did with the dinosaurs, prior to which of them infiltrating the dinosaurs, they were mostly docile and vegetarian, but as soon as they came in and kind of injected and hybridized, spliced them with their genetics, they become aggressive and predatory. Okay, so again, it all goes back to genetics and this infiltration that's done through sex, coitus agreements and relations, whether forced or agreed through biogenesis programs, but also actual hybridization programs of splicing coming in, these races coming in and splicing their own genetics within pre-existing evolved life forms in order to change their whole temperament, biology, behavior. Very fascinating chapter. Otherwise, yeah, kind of elucidating more of what happened through 2021. There's more events that are going to unfold that we're going to get into in the next presentation, all right, which is quite an interesting one. So I'll see you over in chapter 14, where we're going to go into me encountering Satan, Marduk, Enki, and the Great Red Dragon, Freemasons, the Bermuda Triangle, Atlantis, the Ark of the Covenant, the ego, the higher self, subconscious mind, and intuition. Okay, so that's going to be a good one. I'll see you over in the next one. Stay safe as always and stay sovereign. Ciao for now.